Good morning, everyone. Today we are working on a 2016 Ford F550. Big boy here with the 6.7 Power Stroke diesel. The problem we have on this truck is a battery light, but the alternator is still charging at times. It looks like it does drop out every once in a while, but last diagnosis I did on it, it was charging just fine. So initially, the suspected component was the alternator, as most people would think. However, the alternator tested good. So I dug into this a little bit more, and apparently this is a pretty common issue. I'm glad I didn't replace the alternator because, again, that turned out to not be the problem. And I wanted to share with you guys what I found. Let's go over here and look at our wiring diagram. This is the powertrain control module right here. These three connectors go to the PCM. This is your alternator right here. So I tested for battery voltage here at the battery cable, and we had good 12 volts. Next, I tested the other battery positive wire right here, this other red one, which is on this connector. Had good battery voltage, no problem. Next, I went to these regulator circuits here that go to the PCM. This is basically so the PCM can control the voltage output of the alternator here. So you have two wires here. You have a purple one and a yellow one. As you can see on this connector, we have purple and yellow. Those then go over to the PCM. Now it's easy to find here which wires are which, because there's only three of them and they're different colors. The problem is when you get over to the PCM here, you got to figure out which one it is. And that's when you go to your connector views. So right here, we have a connector to the PCM. This is connector C132B, as you see right up here in the top left. And here are the terminal numbers here as we're looking at the connector, the female side of the connector. These are the terminal numbers, and here is what they go to. Now, if you go back here, you see that we have number 14 and number 53. So we'll look up number 14. That is the generator load input, okay? And that one is the purple wire. So what I did was I took a DVOM and I measured from pin number 14, which is this one right here on the far passenger side PCM connector. It's that one right there. Looks like it is, as you're looking at it from this angle here, it is the bottom row, fourth from the far right. And I put the other lead of the multimeter on the purple wire here, and I got good continuity. No problem with that circuit. However, I ran into a problem when I went to test this next wire here. This is number 53 on the PCM connector, same connector, so we'll scroll down here to 53. This is the generator indicator line control circuit going to the PCM. So that terminal is right up here. Again, as you're looking at it from this angle, right like so, it is not the very top row here, but the next one down, and it is third from the left. So we've got this one right here. And when I measured continuity from that terminal over here to the yellow wire on the alternator connector, I had no continuity whatsoever, nothing. There was no continuity. It wasn't even showing any ohms. The meter just said OL. So I knew at that point I had an open circuit. Now there are a couple common places to look for this. You can watch some other YouTube videos on it. I looked in those areas and I did tug tests on the wires trying to find a corroded area, and I couldn't find it. The problem is this wire harness disappears under the engine. It runs around the front and then eventually comes up here to the PCM. That corroded wire could be anywhere. And because it's not in the common places and the easy to get to stuff, and they need their dump truck back later this afternoon, what I'm going to do is I am just going to run a new wire from this connector going to the PCM over here to the alternator to at least get them back on the road. Now we're going to do it right. We're going to use heat shrink and make sure everything is sealed up tight. so they don't run into any future problems. But you can do this. I've had a lot of dealerships say, oh, you have to replace the entire wiring harness. That is not true. You don't have to spend thousands and thousands of dollars to replace an entire wiring harness for one wire. You can simply run a new wire from that connector over to where you need to go. Now again, you want to make sure you do it right, because you don't want to cause future problems down the road, and you want to make sure you secure the wire properly so it doesn't get caught in the fan and all that good stuff. So I'm going to run a new wire from the PCM to the alternator here. That is the number, what's that circuit number? Right here we have CDC09. It's a yellow wire, and it's the generator indicator line control going to the PCM from the alternator. So we are going to essentially be replacing this wire right here between the PCM and the alternator. Once we replace this wire, we should fix our problem. So let's get to cutting these circuits here, splicing in our new wires, and let's see if this fixes the problem. Now, in addition to the battery light being on, when I pulled the codes, I got this P0620 code, which is a generator control circuit. Basically, that code is setting because it's detecting an open circuit between the alternator and the PCM. I didn't want to bore you with footage of me just running the new wires, so I'll give you an overview of what I did. Back down behind the alternator here, the wire is spliced and heat shrink wrapped inside this wiring loom here. Comes out here. It's ran under the zip ties and in wiring loom when I can to protect the circuit. Runs over the top of the engine. Runs over to the PCM connector here. See right there, it just runs down here. Runs into that PCM connector wiring harness down there. And then the PCM connector's plugged back in. So, if our diagnosis was correct and our repair is correct, we should have no more battery light and should have good voltage when this thing is running. By the way, if you guys have a large truck, these top creepers are an absolute must. I'm not sponsored by anyone, but when I see something that really makes your job easier, I like to talk about it, and this thing absolutely does. It's a lot easier than crawling up on top of the engine, having that surface to work on. But anyway, let's start this up and see if the battery light is out. So let's see. There's a battery light right there by the tack. If we start it up, it should go out. And there we go. That's a fix. Check engine light has been on for a long time for an ambient air temperature sensor code. But I'll scan for codes again and make sure that that voltage regulator code hasn't come back. And this should be a fix. Just going through the modules and clearing the codes. Yeah, as you can see, we still have that ambient air temperature sensor code, but the generator circuit code, the generator control circuit code, P0620, has not returned. So, we know our problem has been fixed. And if we go view our voltage here under the BCM data display, I kind of wish that they showed you the voltage up here, but they don't. It is what it is. But we can get our battery voltage right there. And there you have it. 13.2, 13.3 volts. So we are charging. That's good. So there we go. A fix. Didn't have to replace the entire wire harness. Didn't have to replace the alternator. Saved them some money. And we're going to get this truck back out on the road. As always, if you guys enjoyed this video or you found it helpful, give it a thumbs up. And I'll see you in the next video.